When is the last time you, as a transgender person, when is the last time you asked a cisgender person what they have in their pants? If you are transgender, at some point a cis person has come up to you and asked you a question that is just so out of line, but you're just expected to answer it and explain yourself without any question. We're always just expected to make everyone else feel comfortable and put our own comfortability to the side. Well, let me tell you, you do not owe anyone a single answer to any question that you don't feel comfortable answering. So today we are talking about why that is, what questions you might want to shut down, and how to set boundaries without feeling guilty about it. Well, first let's talk about why cisgender people even feel slightly comfortable asking us the questions that they do. Well, it's because society has conditioned everyone to see trans people as an other and not as human beings. And when you don't see someone as a human being, the sky's the limit when you want to ask a question. They think our bodies, our transitions, and even our identities are up for question simply because they don't understand it. And although there are people like myself who do come online and talk about all of this to educate people, that's not exactly what we are here to do. Some of us do it because we want to, but it's definitely not required. And the majority of trans people walking amongst this earth don't want to be an educator because, let's face it, we shouldn't have to. The craziest thing is that cis people get to travel and navigate life as they are without anyone questioning or disrupting their way of life. But when it's us, then it's all fair game. And I don't agree with that, and you guys shouldn't agree with it either. I'm kind of curious to know, so drop a comment down below and let me know if you've gotten any crazy question that you felt uncomfortable answering, but they made you feel guilty into answering. Now, I want to focus on two questions that are just so ridiculous. I don't even get why any grown adult with a fully developed brain would want to ask this kind of question, knowing it could probably trigger people, but you guys can probably already guess. But the first one is, what is your old name? Now, I know at face value this seems like a very innocent question, but in reality, it's an old name for a reason, meaning we don't want to go by that name anymore, so we don't want to talk about that name because we want to just not associate with it. So to ask that question, it's like, here, let me bring up something that you got rid of for a reason, and let me just let's just bring it back to the surface so that you can remember it a little more. Now, in my 9.5 years transitioning and sharing my journey online, my old name is one thing I still have yet to announce to the public. And sometimes I consider doing it because I'm not ashamed of it, and I personally don't have any type of negative vibe towards my birth name. But I also just I just don't care to tell people because I don't know the people on the internet the way I do the people in my real personal life. So it's like, why share that part of me if it's irrelevant to most things, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of the way it would be for you guys. Like, why would you share that part of you if you changed it for a reason, you know? And then of course people can use it against you, so why put yourself in a position to be dead named and whatnot? It's just not necessary. Now the next one, y'all know which one's coming. Have you had the surgery? Now this question speaks for itself. When is the last time you, as a transgender person, when is the last time you asked a cisgender person what they have in their pants, or how big their situation may be in their pants? When's the last time you've done that? Oh right, you haven't. So why should we be expected as trans people to disclose that information for cisgender people? We shouldn't. If it's not something that's appropriate to ask a cisgender person, what makes you think it's okay for us to have to answer it? Throughout my whole transition, there has been many times where people have tried to guilt trip me into disclosing that information for their own satisfaction, their own curiosity. And while it can be a curiosity, it's still not anyone's business. No one, and I mean no one, has the right to know whether you've had any surgeries or not, whether you have one type of anatomy versus the other. No one has the right to know that. besides your doctor for common sense reasons. But aside from that, Joe down the street has no right to know, no matter how much his curiosity is eating him up inside. If he wants to know, he can go to Google and see. Another reason this information is not necessary is because it doesn't apply to all trans people, so it's information that's not going to explain everyone who's trans, because everyone's story is different. So if I say, oh yeah, I have not had the surgery, then that person may think, oh, all trans people don't have the surgeries. That's not true, or vice versa. And then another thing is, the second you tell somebody if you had the surgery or didn't, they may try to take the validity away from your transition. Because for some odd reason, people associate completing a transition with having bottom surgery. And if you haven't had bottom surgery, then they take away your validity as a trans person. Don't give somebody that. Don't let somebody take that from you. No matter how much somebody tries to guilt you into telling them what surgeries you've completed, what surgeries you plan on having, don't answer that question if you're not comfortable, and don't let people guilt you into telling them. That is one of the biggest ways people gaslight the trans community into saying too much information that deep down they're not comfortable sharing. It is not anyone's business, I promise you. Okay, so what do we actually say when people cross the line? Because if you're anything like me, I'm not confrontational at all. I don't like to be confrontational. I can be confrontational, don't get it twisted, but I don't like to be. And so what are things that you can say or do when people question you this way? You could take a direct approach by saying, that's none of your business. That's private. That's not relevant to who I am. Those are things you could say if you want to directly just cut to the chase and cut the conversation short. Another approach that I like to do, you could flip it around. You could ask them questions. Why do you need to know? Why is that relevant? Are you trying to imply something? I like to use that approach because I'm petty, but to each their own. And lastly, you can shut it down with humor. Like, you first. What's in your medical file? Or, aren't you going to take me on a date first? I've heard that one a couple times and I love it. But just know, all in all, you don't owe them politeness. You don't owe them any type of specific, respectful response, because again, they just invaded you by asking a question that has absolutely nothing to do with them, and it is not going to serve them in any way. At the end of the day, you are in control. You do not have to justify your gender to anyone. If you've ever been pressured into telling somebody something you didn't want them to know, drop it down in the comments, and let's help each other by reminding one another that we do not owe anybody a single answer if we don't want to. Keep your boundaries, guys, and until next time, I love y'all. Peace.